Well, hey dudes, and welcome back to another reading making episode of World Building. I am he, the host, Model Monstrosities. This video I started a new series of miniatures. This one's set on Earth, and this new series is called Dimension Z. Okay, back to the regularly scheduled ridiculousness of my channel. So, here is a Spawn Alley playset I bought. Now, this is a collectible series of action figures. Why I bought it was for the monster head. And I tore it apart. So... So I glued on some wood, or I glued it together for the base and walls of the diorama with hot glue. Now you probably could use super glue for this, but it probably wouldn't hold up as well. So after looking through some parts, I picked out this little toy here for part of the portal which I want the monster to be coming out of. And for the monsters that had come out to have come out of. So, kind of the backstory behind this diorama is there was this supercomputer they were working on building. They were going to build two, but this was the prototype. But if all had went to plan to them, they would still be using this one not just as the prototype, but as an actual teleporter. Now that was kind of the idea behind the thing. You would use it to teleport one item from one to the other. So they put one in China, they put one in America, they can teleport items and ship things much faster. The prototype that they were building had been declared failed on file because it simply wasn't working. But a few weeks after it had been declared failed, the designer of the computer broke into the facility where they had placed and built the computer, and he tried to get it working. He figured if he got it working, it wouldn't be declared failed anymore. That's what he figured. And he was hoping that they would put it into production and build more, and he would be famous for inventing it. But that's what he wanted. He wanted to have the fame of designing and completing and inventing this transporting device. So he broke into there, and he tried using the computer himself. But he glitched the whole system. It froze up. He didn't know what to do. So eventually he left the facility. But after he left, the whole thing glitched, and it used information that it had collected and told the receiver, told the materializer that was supposed to make the item on this side of the teleporter, a ton of information, random information, and it sort of made a dimension for a split second. And monsters from that dimension were still coming out of the portal. They just kept coming out, along with a mysterious green goo that was radioactive. So for a short while, the monsters were contained inside of the facility, but it didn't take long before one of the larger monsters broke through one of the walls, and monsters started swarming out. And people started wearing hazmat suits to protect themselves from the radiation. And pretty soon, all this stuff, including the green goo, had made its way across the world and into the oceans. It didn't take long before these monsters, which became known as viruses, such as computer viruses, invaded Earth. And the creatures eventually got across oceans and were in every continent. And that digital dimension that existed for a split second became known as Dimension Z for Zero because it didn't exist. Now this story seems a bit far-fetched, and it kind of is, but sometimes it's hard for me to think of everything specifically and how it all works. So I made that door there out of EVA foam. This is a little piece that I 3D printed for the part of the supercomputer that malfunctioned. kind of like a dial or something. So, setting that aside, I got out some of the monster parts and some other random parts, and I eventually picked out a few parts that I wanted to use to build some monsters and make some monsters with. I was going to use the centipede, but I didn't. So here's a little thing I 3D printed. I kind of liked the idea of that one, but with my paint job and stuff, I ended up not using it. There's another thing I 3D printed. And I primed the diorama. I know, it's so weird. I actually primed it. But I also painted it black. Now you might be wondering why I didn't prime it black. I think it's because I couldn't find black primer, so I just used other primer. But I painted it black, which is what I like to do sometimes when I'm painting metal, more worn out stuff. Also here I clipped out a little monster that I wanted to put in there from a sprue. And I dry brushed the thing, or kind of dry brushed it with a metallic, and made for an old metal kind of look. Now I don't know how old the facility would really be, but I also don't know how long it was supposed to have taken them, so for all I know, it took a long time. I also wanted to put hazard stripes up on the sides there. I also painted the portal thing kind of like a hazard stripe. I think that's what those are called. Back to painting some monsters. There I was painting a small or large or medium-sized piece I had put on the wall. This is a strange crab thing, which I thought looked kind of weird, but I still put him in the diorama. I was painting him, and I had also 3D printed that one. Now sometimes painting can really take some time, but sometimes it can help you help encourage you to go faster. Like, man, I'm sick of painting this thing, I should really hurry up and get it done. Also, I was adding some rust, sort of ideas of rust, I guess, not a whole lot, onto some of the metallic surface. I also painted the inside of the transporting device, kind of a blue color. Also put a little sign above the door. Now this is a little hand I wanted to use for the large monster. And I was also getting an idea of where I wanted to put some of the little monsters. I used some UV resin to kind of seal up the thing, because I wanted to put some epoxy resin in there. And I also mixed up some kind of green UV resin and tried to pour it as if it were coming out of the transporting device. That's that radioactive goo I was talking about. And I also UV resined the monster in. And I also mixed up some epoxy resin and added some blue. And there was a little leak on the corner there. I tried to use some UV resin to seal it up. And I didn't want to paint the hazard stripes, so I ended up printing them out and gluing them on. Yes, and I would appreciate some subscriptions. Thank you to those who have subscribed, and if you enjoyed this video and want to hear more on the series, please subscribe. And I believe that would be a build completed.